The salty air from the Pacific mixed with stale beer and grilled burgers at Anchor's Edge, a weathered dive bar 3 miles from Naval Base Coronado. It was the kind of place where military personnel came to disappear for a few hours. Worn leather booths, neon signs buzzing overhead, and classic rock bleeding from speakers that had seen better decades. Harper sat alone at the far end of the bar, nursing a whiskey neat. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore civilian clothes, faded jeans and a grey Henley that concealed the lean muscle underneath. At 38, she carried herself with the quiet awareness of someone who'd spent years reading rooms before entering them. Her green eyes scanned the mirror behind the bar, tracking movements without seeming to look directly at anyone. The Tuesday night crowd was typical. Off-duty sailors, a few Marines, local regulars who'd been coming here since the 80s. The bartender, an ex-Navy guy named Lucas, knew her well enough to pour without asking, but smart enough not to pry. That's why she came here. At the other end of the bar, a group of SEALs were winding down after Hell Week training. Their voices carried, confident, occasionally loud, the way young warriors talk when they're testing their place in the world. One of them, a guy in his late 20s with close-cropped blonde hair and a strong jawline, kept glancing her way. Harper noticed, but didn't acknowledge it. She'd learned long ago that attention was currency. You spent it carefully or not at all. The SEAL, his buddies called him Ethan, finally stood up. His teammates laughed, throwing out comments about him shooting his shot. He approached with the easy confidence of someone who'd survived some of the military's toughest training, a beer in hand and a friendly smile on his face. "Mind if I sit?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the empty stool beside her. Harper glanced at him briefly. Free country. He sat down, taking a long pull from his bottle. For a minute, neither spoke. Lucas refilled Harper's glass without being asked. "You military?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. "Was," Harper replied, her tone neutral. "Which branch?" "Navy." Ethan nodded, seeming pleased to find common ground. "SEAL?" Harper's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Something like that. The music shifted. Springsteen's Born in the USA filled the space between them. Outside, car headlights swept across the bar's salt-stained windows. "I'm Ethan," he offered, extending his hand. She shook it. Her grip was firm, controlled. "Harper." "So, Harper," Ethan continued, the beer loosening his tongue, "what was your specialty? Logistics, intelligence?" "Operational." He raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "Combat, when necessary." There was something in the way she answered, clipped, precise, like she was measuring every word, that caught his attention. This wasn't someone trying to impress. This was someone who'd seen things and chosen to say nothing. "We all had call signs during training," Ethan said, leaning in slightly. "Stupid stuff mostly. Mine was Blade because I kept my K-bar so sharp." He laughed at the memory. "What was yours? If you had one?" Harper's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her glass. The question hung in the air between them. Heavier than Ethan realized, the bar noise seemed to fade into the background, the clinking glasses, the laughter, the music all becoming distant. Harper turned to look at him directly for the first time, her green eyes holding his with an intensity that made him suddenly aware he'd asked something significant. "Viper 1, she said quietly. The beer bottle slipped from Ethan's hand, hitting the bar top with a sharp crack before bouncing to the floor. Glass shattered. The liquid spread across the aged wood, dripping onto his boots. But he didn't move, didn't breathe. His face went pale, the color draining so quickly it was like watching someone receive terrible news. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Around them, a few heads turned at the sound of breaking glass. But Harper's eyes never left his. "You—" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "That's not possible." Lucas came over with a towel, mopping up the spill, but he caught the tension between them and backed away silently. Viper 1 was... Ethan swallowed hard, his SEAL composure shattered. That operation was 15 years ago. Yemen, the embassy extraction that never happened, the one they buried so deep even the after-action reports got classified above top secret. Harper took a slow sip of her whiskey. "You're telling me you're her?" Ethan's hand trembled as he ran it through his hair. The operator who went in alone when the entire rescue team got compromised. Who pulled out 12 civilians through hostile territory with every insurgent group in the region hunting you? "That was a long time ago," Harper said evenly. "They said you were a ghost, that Viper 1 was someone so far off the books even JSOC couldn't confirm or deny." Ethan's voice was rising slightly, drawing attention. "My instructor at Bud S used to tell stories, said you were the standard we'd never reach, that you made SEALs look like amateurs." Harper's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, a shadow of the weight she'd carried for years. "Your instructor talked too much," she said quietly. Ethan stared at her like he was seeing a legend materialize in front of him. His whole body was rigid, frozen between disbelief and something that looked almost like fear, not of her, but of what her presence meant. "Why are you here?" he finally asked. "In some nowhere bar in California?" Harper finished her whiskey and set the glass down gently. "Same reason as you. Trying to forget." She stood up, pulling out cash and leaving it on the bar. As she turned to leave, Ethan found his voice again. "Wait." He stood too, his training kicking in despite his shock. "If you're Viper 1, if you're really her, then something's wrong. Ghosts don't just appear unless something's coming." Harper paused, looking back at him over her shoulder. The bar lights cast shadows across her face, making her look older, more tired. "You're smarter than your instructor gave you credit for, Ethan," she said. Then quieter, "Stay alert, watch your team, and if anyone starts asking questions about old operations in Yemen, you never saw me." She walked out into the cool California night, leaving Ethan standing frozen at the bar, his mind racing with implications he didn't want to consider. Behind the bar, Lucas picked up the empty glass. "Friend of yours?" Ethan couldn't answer. He was still processing the impossible reality that he'd just met someone who wasn't supposed to exist, and her warning that suggested the past wasn't as buried as everyone thought. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his barracks room at Coronado, his laptop open, searching through every database he had clearance to access. Most queries about Viper 1 returned nothing, literally blank screens or error messages. The few classified reports he could access had entire sections redacted, black bars covering names, dates, operational details. But he remembered the stories. It was 2010, during the Arab Spring chaos. The U.S. Embassy in Sana'a, Yemen's capital, had been under siege. Intelligence suggested an imminent attack by Al-Qaeda affiliates. The official story was that all personnel evacuated safely through standard channels. Clean, organized, routine. The real story, the one whispered in SEAL training rooms and special operations circles, was different. A rescue team had been inserted 48 hours before the evacuation. Their mission, extract a dozen high-value civilians, including diplomats, intelligence assets and their families, but the operation was compromised. Someone had leaked the plans. The team walked into an ambush. 3 operators were killed in the first 30 seconds. The rest were pinned down, taking heavy fire, with no exfil possible. That's when Viper 1 went in. A single operator, no backup, no official mission orders, just someone who moved through hostile territory like smoke, eliminated threats with surgical precision, and led 12 terrified civilians on a 3-day journey through militant-controlled regions to an emergency extraction point near the Saudi border. By the time JSOC realized what had happened, the civilians were safe, and Viper 1 had vanished. The operation was classified so heavily that even acknowledging it existed became a career-ending move. And now she was drinking whiskey in a bar in California. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from his team leader, Carter. Briefing 0600. Full team. Mandatory. He checked the time. 0347. 2 hours. Harper sat in her apartment, a modest one-bedroom, in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes from the base. The space was sparse. Minimal furniture, no photographs, nothing personal, except a worn paperback on the nightstand, and a small succulent plant on the windowsill that somehow kept surviving despite her neglect. She stood by the window, looking out at the pre-dawn darkness. The encounter with Ethan had been a risk. She'd known it the moment she answered his question. But something in his eyes, the genuine curiosity, the lack of agenda, had made her respond honestly for the first time in years. Viper 1. The name felt like wearing old clothes that didn't fit anymore. She'd buried that identity, walked away from the life, took an honorable discharge that conveniently erased her operational history. She'd thought she was done. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed. A package had arrived at her door. No return address. Inside, a photograph from Yemen, 2010. Harper recognized it immediately. Herself, 15 years younger, exhausted, covered in dust and blood that wasn't hers, surrounded by the 12 civilians she'd saved. It was a photo that shouldn't exist. All mission documentation had been destroyed. Beneath the photo, a single typed message. We know who you are. We know what you did. And we're coming to collect. Harper had spent 2 decades in intelligence and special operations. She knew a threat when she saw one. But this wasn't just a threat. It was personal. Someone had found her. Someone who knew about Yemen. Someone who wanted something. She'd been investigating quietly for weeks, using old contacts, pulling threads, trying to identify who might have her operational records. The trail led to a private military contractor named Julian Cross, a former CIA operations officer who'd gone private after being forced out for ethics violations. Cross specialized in leveraging classified information for profit, selling secrets to the highest bidder, but Cross was just the middleman. Someone else was pulling strings. Harper's phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. The SEAL you spoke to tonight, Ethan Reeves. His team has been activated for Yemen. Coincidence. Watch the news tomorrow. Her stomach dropped. She'd put Ethan in danger just by talking to him. She grabbed her laptop, accessing secure channels through encrypted networks. It took 20 minutes, but she found it. A classified operation briefing for SEAL Team 3. Yemen. High-value target extraction. Departure in 72 hours. The operation parameters looked familiar, too familiar. Same region she'd operated in, same types of targets, same logistical approach that had gotten the original team killed in 2010. Someone was using her old playbook. And they were sending Ethan's team into a trap. At 0600, Ethan sat in the briefing room with his team. Carter stood at the front, his expression serious. Behind him, a projector displayed satellite imagery of a compound in northern Yemen. "Gentlemen," Carter began, "we have a time-sensitive operation, high-value target. American journalist taken hostage 3 weeks ago by an Al-Qaeda affiliate. Intelligence suggests she's being held at this location. We insert, extract and exfil within a 4-hour window." Ethan studied the imagery. The compound was isolated, surrounded by hostile territory, with limited approach routes. Everything about it screamed ambush. "What's the intelligence source?" asked Noah, their communications specialist. Carter hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "CIA asset. Verified through multiple channels." "What about local support?" Ethan pressed. "None. This is black. We go in, we come out, nobody knows we were there." The room was silent. Every operator recognized the risks. "Questions?" Carter asked. Ethan raised his hand. Sir, has anyone analyzed this against historical operations in the region, specifically around 2010? Carter's eyes narrowed slightly. Why would that be relevant? Because this setup looks identical to an operation that went bad 15 years ago. Same region, same isolation, same lack of local support. That team walked into an ambush, 3 KIA. That operation is classified, Carter said firmly, and irrelevant to our mission. With respect, sir, if someone's using our operational playbook, we need to know. The tension in the room was palpable. Carter stared at Ethan for a long moment. We deploy in 72 hours, Carter said finally. Study the briefing materials. Dismissed. As the team filed out, Carter pulled Ethan aside. Where did you hear about 2010? He asked quietly. Ethan hesitated. Someone mentioned it, an old operator. Who? Does it matter? Carter's expression hardened. Listen carefully. That operation doesn't exist. Anyone claiming to have been there is either lying or violating their security clearance. And if you're getting information from unauthorized sources, we have a problem. I'm trying to keep my team alive, sir. So am I. Which is why you need to trust the intelligence we've been given and leave the past where it belongs. Ethan nodded, but as he walked away, Harper's warning echoed in his mind. If anyone starts asking questions about old operations in Yemen, you never saw me. Someone was asking questions, and his team was about to pay the price for answers nobody was supposed to find. Harper sat across from Lucas at a back corner table of Anchor's Edge. The bar was closed. It was barely 800, but Lucas had let her in through the back door. He poured 2 coffees, black, and sat down with the wary expression of someone who knew he was about to hear something he didn't want to know. You're about to ask me for something, Lucas said. It wasn't a question. I need to get on base, Harper replied. Coronado, without going through official channels. Lucas whistled low. That's a federal crime. You know that, right? I know what it is. He studied her face, the tension in her jaw, the dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. This about that SEAL from last night. The one who looked like he'd seen a ghost? His team is walking into a trap. Yemen. They deploy in 3 days. And you know this how? Harper pulled out her phone, showing him the encrypted message. Lucas read it, his expression darkening. This is way above my pay grade, Harper. I'm not asking you to do anything except help me get inside. I'll handle the rest. You'll get yourself killed or arrested, probably both. That SEAL, Ethan, he's 27 years old. His team is 8 operators, all with families, all believing they're executing a legitimate rescue operation. They're being set up because someone wants to draw me out. Lucas leaned back, running his hand over his face. Why you? What did you do that's worth killing a SEAL team? Yemen, 2010. I saved 12 people. But I also destroyed evidence that would have exposed CIA operations in the region. Operations that weren't authorized, that violated international law. People made a lot of money from those operations. When I shut them down, I made powerful enemies. And now they're coming for payback. Now they're coming for leverage. They can't touch me directly. But if they kill a SEAL team using my operational playbook, they can blame me, discredit everything I did. Bury me in the truth at the same time. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. I got out 6 years ago, he finally said. Opened this bar specifically so I wouldn't have to deal with this shit anymore. I know. And now you're asking me to risk everything I built. I'm asking you to help me save 8 lives. He looked at her, really looked at her. Behind the controlled exterior, he saw the exhaustion, the weight of carrying secrets too dangerous to share. He saw someone who'd sacrificed everything for people who would never know her name. There's a service entrance on the north side of the base, Lucas said quietly. Supply deliveries come through between 1400 and 1600. Security is lighter because they're focused on the main gates. My cousin Chloe works logistics. She can get you credentials that'll pass a quick scan. Lucas, don't thank me. Just don't get caught. And don't make me regret this. Harper nodded. I won't. By 1430, Harper was inside Coronado Naval Base, wearing a civilian contractor badge with Chloe's help and carrying a tablet that made her look like she belonged. The base was massive. Training facilities, barracks, administrative buildings spread across hundreds of acres. She'd memorized the layout weeks ago, anticipating she might need it. SEAL Team 3's operations center was in Building 147, a nondescript structure with enhanced security. Harper approached from the maintenance corridor, using the service elevator that contractors use to access mechanical systems. It wasn't glamorous, but it was invisible. On the third floor, she slipped into an empty office and accessed the base network through a port she'd identified earlier. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Years of intelligence training made her efficient, precise. She wasn't stealing information, she was planting it. The briefing materials for the Yemen operation appeared on her screen. She studied them carefully, comparing them against her own mission files from 2010. The similarities weren't coincidental, they were identical. Same compound, same approach vectors, same extraction timing. Someone had copied her operation exactly, down to the minute details. But they'd changed one critical element. The intelligence source was compromised. Harper pulled up the CIA asset file. The name attached was someone she recognized, Nora Hassan, a local informant who'd worked with US forces during the Arab Spring. But Nora had been killed in 2011. Harper knew because she'd been at the memorial service. Someone was using a dead woman's identity to feed false intelligence. She modified the briefing file, adding a backdoor analysis that would flag the inconsistencies. It wouldn't stop the operation. She didn't have that authority, but it would make someone look closer. Make them ask questions. As she worked, footsteps approached in the hallway. Harper's training kicked in. She closed the laptop, slipped under the desk, controlling her breathing. The door opened. 2 officers entered, talking. "Don't like it," one was saying. "The whole operation feels wrong, too clean, too convenient." Command signed off. "We execute as ordered." "What if it's a setup? What if someone's trying to get our guys killed?" "Then we trust they're smart enough to adapt." "That's why they're SEALs." The voices faded as they moved to another office. Harper waited 2 full minutes before emerging. Her heart rate was steady. Fear was a luxury she'd learned to suppress decades ago. She finished her work, erasing her digital footprint, and headed back toward the service elevator. But as she turned a corner, she nearly collided with Ethan. He was in uniform, carrying mission materials, and his eyes widened in recognition. "Harper, what are you? You can't be here." "Walk with me," she said quietly. "Act like we're supposed to be having this conversation." They moved toward an empty stairwell. Once inside, Ethan's professional demeanor cracked. "How did you get on base?" "That's not important. Your mission is compromised." "How do you know about my mission?" "Because someone is using my operational history to set you up. The intelligence source for your target, Nora Hassan, she's been dead for 14 years. Whoever's feeding you information is lying." Ethan's face went pale. "That's impossible. The intel was verified." "By who?" "CIA, the same agency that had operations in Yemen so black even Congress didn't know about them. The same agency that wanted me dead after I exposed their methods. This is insane. This is reality, and if you deploy as planned, you and your team are going to die. That compound you're hitting, it's a kill box. Every approach is mined, every exit is covered. You'll be ambushed before you even reach the target." Ethan stared at her, his SEAL training warring with the impossibility of what she was saying. "Why should I believe you?" Harper pulled out a USB drive. "Because I just uploaded an analysis to your briefing files. Review it with your intelligence officer. Check the asset verification. Follow the trail. And when you realize I'm right, You need to decide if you're willing to trust me. And if I am, then meet me tomorrow night. Same bar, 2200. I'll show you how to survive what's coming." She handed him the drive and started to leave, but Ethan grabbed her arm. "Why are you doing this? You walked away. You got out. Why risk everything to help people you don't know?" Harper looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Because 15 years ago, 12 people lived because I didn't walk away. And I've spent every day since wondering if I did the right thing. Maybe this is my chance to answer that question." She pulled free and disappeared down the stairwell, leaving Ethan holding the drive and facing the impossible choice between following orders and trusting a ghost. Ethan sat in Carter's office at 1900, the USB drive on the desk between them. The intelligence officer, a sharp-eyed woman named Scarlett, who'd spent 12 years in CIA analysis, stood by the window, her arms crossed. "This is highly irregular," Carter said, not for the first time. "Sir, just look at it," Ethan pressed. "The asset verification doesn't check out. Nora Hassan died in 2011. There are photographs, memorial records. She can't be the source for current intelligence." Scarlett moved to the desk, pulling up files on her laptop. The asset code was verified through proper channels. "What channels? Can you trace the actual verification? Not the paperwork, the actual human being who confirmed this?" Scarlett's fingers moved across the keyboard. Minutes passed. Her expression shifted from confidence to concern. "The verification came from a contractor," she said slowly. "A private intelligence firm called Apex Strategic Solutions." "Who owns it?" Carter asked, more typing. "Julian Cross, former CIA, left the agency in 2012 after—" "Oh. After what?" Ethan demanded. "After allegations of selling classified information. The charges were dropped due to lack of evidence, but he was forced out." Carter and Ethan exchanged looks. "This is the same company providing intelligence for our operation?" Carter asked. "According to the routing, yes, but the information was vetted by CIA oversight." "Which oversight office?" Ethan interrupted. Scarlett checked. Her face went pale. "The office was dissolved in 2018. Budget cuts." The room went silent. "We're being set up," Ethan said quietly. "Someone paid Cross to feed us false intelligence using a dead asset's credentials. They knew we wouldn't have time to verify thoroughly. They knew we'd trust the system." Carter stood, pacing. "If this is true, we need to inform JSOC immediately." "And tell them what?" Scarlett asked. "That we're getting bad intelligence from a contractor? They'll want proof, hard evidence, which means days of investigation while the operation timeline stays active." "Then we delay the operation," Carter said. "On what grounds?" Ethan countered. "A USB drive from an unknown source that somehow ended up in my hands. We can't explain where this analysis came from without admitting someone unauthorized accessed base systems." "So, what do you suggest?" Carter asked, frustrated. Ethan took a breath. "I suggest we meet with my source tonight. Get the full picture, then decide." Carter studied him. "Your source. The person from the bar. The one who claims to be Viper 1. "Yes, sir." "You understand that could be a counterintelligence operation, that you could be the one being played." "I understand. But if there's even a chance she's right, we owe it to the team to find out." Scarlett closed her laptop. "I'll come with you. If this is legitimate intelligence, I need to assess it directly." Carter considered for a long moment. "You have until midnight. After that, I'm taking this up the chain of command regardless of what you find." At 2200, Harper sat in the same spot at Anchor's Edge. Lucas had closed early again, leaving just the three of them, Harper, Lucas behind the bar, and the empty space that felt larger than the room itself. When Ethan arrived with Carter and Scarlett, Harper's expression didn't change. She'd expected this. "You brought company," she observed. "This is my team leader, Carter, and our intelligence officer, Scarlett," Ethan said. "If what you're telling me is true, They need to hear it." Harper gestured to the empty chairs. They sat. "How much did you tell them?" Harper asked Ethan. "Everything, including who you claim to be." Scarlett leaned forward. "I've spent 12 years in intelligence. I've never seen a file on Viper 1. No operational records, no personnel files, nothing. So either you're lying or you were erased so completely that even classified archives don't acknowledge you." "Both can be true," Harper replied. "I was erased because I became inconvenient." "Inconvenient how?" Carter asked. Harper pulled out a folder, physical paper, no digital trail. She slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, documents, evidence she'd accumulated over 15 years. "In 2010, I was part of a joint CIA-JSOC operation in Yemen. The mission was counter-terrorism, but what I found was something else. The CIA was running illegal arms deals through local proxies. They were funding militant groups, creating chaos to justify US presence in the region. When I uncovered this, I was ordered to stay silent." "But you didn't," Scarlett said, reading through the documents. "I couldn't. The same militants they were funding attacked the embassy, killed American personnel. I had evidence, so I destroyed their operation, burned the supply chains, exposed the financials, and I extracted 12 civilians who would have been killed to cover it up." "And then you disappeared," Carter said. "I was given a choice. Take an honorable discharge, accept erasure from all records, and stay quiet, or face charges for insubordination and leaking classified information. I chose to live." "But they're coming after you now," Ethan said. "Why?" "Because Julian Cross was one of the officers running those illegal operations. He lost millions when I shut him down. He's been waiting 15 years for revenge. And now he's found a way. Frame me by killing a SEAL team using my playbook, then sell the story that I was working with hostile forces all along." Scarlett looked up from the documents. If this is real, this is massive. Congressional investigations, agency reforms, criminal charges. "It's real," Harper said quietly. "And your team is the sacrifice that makes it all work. You die in Yemen following intelligence that traces back to my operational methods. Cross sells the narrative that I was always compromised. The CIA buries the truth to protect itself. Everyone wins, except the people who die." Carter's jaw tightened. "How do we stop it?" "You can't stop the operation. It's too far in motion. But you can change the outcome. I can give you the real intelligence, show you what the actual compound looks like, give you an approach that avoids the ambush." "And then what?" Scarlett asked. "We execute successfully and Cross's plan falls apart?" "No," Harper said. "We execute successfully and create enough noise that people start asking questions. Questions that lead to evidence I've been gathering for 15 years. Evidence that puts Cross in prison and exposes everyone who helped him." Ethan looked at his team leader. "Sir?" Carter sat back, the weight of command visible on his face. He'd been a SEAL for 20 years. He knew when to trust his gut. "If we do this," Carter said to Harper, "you're coming with us. Not on the operation, but close enough to provide real-time intelligence. If you're setting us up, I want you close enough to pay the price." Harper nodded. "Fair enough." Scarlett gathered the documents. "I need to verify some of this, but preliminarily, I believe you, which terrifies me." "Good," Harper said. "Fear keeps you alert, and you're going to need to be very alert for what comes next." 72 hours later, Harper sat in a mobile command center 50 kilometers from the Yemen border. Officially, she didn't exist. The operation logs would show no civilian contractors, no unauthorized personnel. But Carter had made it happen, calling in favors and bending regulations in ways that could end his career. On the monitors, she watched drone footage of the compound. Ethan's team was 30 minutes from insertion. "Talk me through it," Carter said through the comms. Harper pulled up a tablet overlaying her 2010 mission data with current satellite imagery. Original briefing had you approaching from the northwest. That's the kill zone. They've mined the entire access route and have overlapping fields of fire from 3 positions. So we go southeast. Noah's voice came through. No, southeast is too open. You'll be exposed for 200 meters. They'll hear you coming. Then where? Ethan asked. Harper zoomed in on the compound's eastern edge. There's a wadi, a dry riverbed, that runs along the eastern wall. It's narrow, rocky, but it provides cover. In 2010, I used it to extract civilians. The militants dismissed it because it's difficult terrain. They still will. Difficult how? Carter asked. Steep walls, loose rock. You'll need to move single file, but you'll be invisible until you're inside the compound. Scarlett studied the imagery. How do we breach once we're there? The eastern wall has a drainage culvert. It's just wide enough for a person. The bars are rusted. 2 charges will blow them. You're inside within seconds, and you'll come up in the old storage area. Target should be in the northern building. Should be? Carter pressed. I can't see through walls, but that's where they kept prisoners in 2010. Old habits die hard. The team went silent, processing the plan. It's risky, Ethan finally said, but it's better than walking into an ambush. Execute on your timeline, Carter authorized. Harper, stay on comms. Copy that. Harper watched the drone feed as the team diverted from their original route. The night vision showed them moving like shadows through the wadi, their training evident in every careful step. At the compound, they placed charges exactly as she'd described. The breach was textbook, fast, quiet, efficient. Inside, Ethan reported, moving to target. Harper's hands clenched. She'd sent men into danger before, but never like this, never so personal. Gunfire erupted. On the screens, thermal signatures showed the team engaging hostiles. The operation was live, chaotic, deadly. Contact! Noah's voice was sharp. Multiple hostiles. 2nd floor. North building, Harper said calmly. Exactly where I said they'd be. That means the prisoner is close. We're pinned down, Ethan reported. Harper studied the compound layout. There's a stairwell on the west side. It's structurally weak, damaged in 2010. 2 grenades should collapse it. That'll cut off reinforcements. Copy. Executing. The explosion rattled through the comms. Dust bloomed on the thermal imaging. Stairwell's down, Ethan confirmed. Moving on target. 5 minutes felt like hours. Harper listened to the team's disciplined communications, their breathing, their movements. This was what she'd walked away from, the razor's edge between life and death, where every decision mattered. Target acquired, Ethan announced. American journalist, alive and mobile, X-filing now. Southwest corner, Harper said. There's a breach in the wall from a mortar strike last year, 60 meters to the extraction point. The team moved. Harper watched their progress, checking for pursuit. Vehicles approaching from the north, Scarlett warned. Multiple armed hostiles. How far? Carter demanded. 3 minutes. Harper's mind raced. Ethan, there's an old fuel depot 20 meters from your position. Southwest corner. If you hit it with incendiaries, you'll create a smoke screen and block their approach. That'll alert everyone in a 5-kilometer radius, Ethan said. You'll be extracted in 2 minutes. Make noise. Copy, lighting it up. The fuel depot exploded in a fireball, visible even on the drone feed. Smoke poured across the compound, obscuring everything. Moving through smoke, Ethan reported. Extraction point in sight. The helicopter's rotors were audible even through the comms. The team loaded the journalist, counted off, and lifted into the night sky. All personnel accounted for, Carter announced. Operation successful. In the command center, relief flooded through Harper's body. She'd done it. They'd survived. But the work wasn't finished. 3 weeks later, Harper sat in a secure facility in Virginia. Across from her were two FBI agents, a DOJ prosecutor, and a Congressional Oversight Committee member. On the table between them were documents, her documents, the evidence she'd compiled over 15 years. Julian Cross had been arrested. His company had been raided. The investigation was expanding, reaching into CIA leadership, private contractors, Defense Department officials. The story was too big to contain, and Harper was at the center of it. "You understand," the prosecutor said, "that coming forward means you'll be exposed. Your identity, your history, everything you've done to stay hidden will become public." "I understand," Harper replied. "Why now? You've stayed quiet for 15 years. Why risk everything?" Harper thought about Ethan, about his team, about the 12 people from 2010 who got to live because she chose to act. "Because staying silent was killing me," she said simply. "And because 8 men deserve to know that someone fought for them the way they fight for others." The committee member leaned forward. "You'll testify? In open court?" "Yes." "And you understand that powerful people will try to discredit you, that they'll claim you're lying, that you're mentally unstable, that you're seeking attention?" Harper smiled. A real smile this time, not the ghost of one. "Let them try. I've got 15 years of evidence and a SEAL team that'll swear I saved their lives. That's a strong foundation." 6 months later, Harper walked into Anchor's Edge. It was Tuesday night, the same night she'd met Ethan. Lucas was behind the bar, and when he saw her, he poured a whiskey without asking. "Saw you on the news," he said. "Congressional testimony. They're calling you a hero." "They're calling me a lot of things," Harper corrected. "Hero is just one of them." The bar door opened. Ethan walked in, now with a few more lines around his eyes, but the same steady confidence. Behind him came Carter, Noah, and 3 other team members. They approached her table. Ethan extended his hand. "Wanted to say thank you," he said. "Properly. For everything." Harper shook his hand. "You would have done the same." "Maybe. But you actually did it." The team bought a round. They sat together, trading stories carefully edited for civilian ears. Lucas kept the drinks coming. Outside, the California night was cool and clear. "So, what's next for you?" Ethan asked Harper. "Government witness protection, new identity, disappear again?" Harper sipped her whiskey, considering. "I'm done disappearing. I've got a book deal, full disclosure about Yemen, the CIA operations, everything, and I'm consulting for a congressional committee on special operations oversight." "Sounds boring," Noah said with a grin. "Terribly," Harper agreed. "But someone needs to make sure the next generation of operators doesn't get burned the way we did." Carter raised his glass. "To Viper 1, the ghost who came back." They drank, and for the first time in 15 years, Harper felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace. Not the peace of silence, but the peace of purpose. She'd stopped hiding. She'd stopped running. And she'd discovered that the strongest weapon wasn't stealth or skill. It was the courage to stand in the light and tell the truth, no matter the cost. Outside, the Pacific breeze carried the salt air through open windows. Inside, old warriors and new friends shared stories of battles fought and lives saved. And Harper, who'd spent so long being invisible, finally allowed herself to be seen.